Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor. He's Adrian Lacey. And if you've not caught us before, we get a comedy show. We slap it onto the slab and we dissect it. We're a bit like a kind of mortuary for comedy programmes. But the only laughter we get is each other when we're corpsing. Corpsing.
Oh, but you make it sound like we kill every show.
Yeah,
I think that's the worry about the image.
I often think that about the comedy show because it is quite a sort of I was going to say mortuaristic. Is that a word?
It is now. It's really vivisections what we do. If it's a good show, isn't it? While it's still alive.
Still alive, yeah. That's
Which,
even
if
worse.
you think about it, that's what surgeons are doing. One did that on my elbow. Anyway, enough about that.
Was that the doctor who couldn't tell your bottom from your elbow? And I remember you saying about him, you said...
No, it's... No, it's when I went in to have my tonsils out and they got the trolley the wrong way around.
I never tire of that one. I love that.
I heard that from... I must credit him, even though sadly he's no longer with us. I always want to say Billy Bragg, but it was Bobby Bragg, the stand-up comedian.
I don't know.
Did a lot of warming up of shows that you wouldn't know, even if you didn't know him. So he wasn't... he wasn't a big star, but he had a fantastic line in, one-liners, and
He's a bit like Bobby Chariot, was he? Do you remember Alexi Sale's character, Bobby Chariot, who was the warm-up man for the Alexi Sale show? All right, everybody, I'm on pills for my nerves. Him, that was it.
That's too close to the bone.
That was his, Bobby Chariot was his character that was his own warm-up man, but...
oh, dear.
There you go.
Talking too close to the bone, just before we actually do some vivisection, or is it dissection of Good Omens with David Tennant and Michael Sheen.
I'm glad you said that, so I transposed the names, and we ended up with...
Oh, yes.
Michael Tennant and Mr. Sheen.
It's a very polished act. Anyway, never mind. No, please yourselves. I'm looking at a headline which reads, Joe's Acid Tongue. You'll know what this is about, won't you?
Yeah.
And I think quite a few of our listeners will. This is Joe Brand, either crossing a line or just being Joe Brand, and you may be of the view that she should be let to get on with it. I actually think, unusually for her, in my view, she did cross the line. I suppose we should explain the joke, which means
it was about the milkshake thing, wasn't it? Saying about Farage, She said, "I can't understand why people throw milkshakes at him when there's perfectly good battery acid about." I'm paraphrasing, but that was kind of basically what she was saying. You think she crossed the line? Do you? Is there a line in comedy? Do you think?
Well, not a clear, hard and fast one. No, life would be much simpler if there was. It's a tricky one. Can I read out a tweet I wrote on a day or two after Nigel Farage of the Brexit Party got doused in milkshake? This is my tweet, for what it's worth. People cheering the fact that Nigel Farage, of whom I am no political fan, gets doused with milkshake should be careful what they wish for. It is an assault. And next time, it might be someone you passionately agree with who gets soaked, full stop, new sentence, with acid, full stop.
That is a line, isn't it, though? That's the difference, isn't it? If you assault somebody, I've got no problems with that. We are a nation of becoming professionally outraged more and more often now, and I do kind of...
Well, no one's paying me for this. If you want to pay me, I'll happily...
No, but you know what I mean. We kind of it's outrage is our business, and like with the Danny Baker thing, where he tweeted a picture of monkeys dressed up in suits and made some reference to the royal family, and everybody said it was racism, taking it out of context. Because apparently, I'm not a fan of Danny Baker. I don't follow his stuff, but apparently, he does a lot of tweeting of pictures of animals dressed as in human clothes. So it was kind of, contextual. And the police actually investigated that. And I just thought, we've lost out. I mean, the police, I saw a thing on Twitter, the two police officers dancing on a course the other day, and they tweeted it. And I just thought, if you think that's what the public want to see you doing, then you are sadly out of step with what this country wants from a police force.
What steps were they doing then?
I don't know, but they were out of step. Do you know what I mean? That
I didn't mean to interrupt you as you were being professionally outraged.
Somebody was saying about the police and whatever, and they said, they didn't realise that to arrest them. They thought they only had to dance with them at a carnival. And to me, that's the level we're at now. Is that we've got a police force who are investigating.
Got a dubious undertow to it, I think.
But do you know what I mean? That is that is what you see the police doing, and you kind of think. They're investigating this kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. I understand the free speech arguments, but for one thing, things are so supercharged at the moment. And let us not forget, we must never forget, Jo Cox was actually murdered, an MP in Yorkshire.
But Jo Brand didn't do it. She got an alibi. She was somewhere else, apparently, at the time. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you can't...
I get that. And Jo Brand was, she was speaking. But there are people who, I don't know, I worry that there's people so close to the edge, they'll say, in court, it wasn't really my fault that I poured acid over him. Jo Brand told me to do it.
Yeah, but it's like the rock and roll defence, isn't it, though? It's no defence at all, is it? And
you
can't legislate. I can't remember who it was. It's somebody in America, they got taken to court, one of the heavy metal bands got taken to court saying there was satanic messages. Wasn't it Black Sabbath? I think was it
something like that. Yeah.
But you can't kind of legislate for people who have, at best dubious defence tactics, or at worst a mental illness. You can't kind of go so we can't put anything. Somebody was saying, didn't they know about like the Benny Hill thing and it caused so much sexism? And somebody said, yeah, that's right, because I used to watch the Flintstones as a kid. And now I work in a quarry with dinosaurs and travel every day to work in a car that's got no floor in it.
Did they really? That's me being gullible again. Someone told me the word gullible's been removed from the dictionary.
Do you know what I mean? Though it's that kind of, you think, come on, you've got to have the real world, and if people have got issues with the real world, you have to deal with those. But I didn't have a problem with it. I asked my wife just as a bit of a barometer, and I said, "Did you hear?" She said, "Well, what happened?" And I told her. She said, "Was it on the comedy program?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, no, then." And that's the context.
Context is massively important, but also the context was BBC Radio 4, where the horses can get relatively easily frightened, especially I think this would have been the 6:30 slot, wouldn't it? Well, funnily enough, it's a show called Heresy, or not funnily enough. So, yes, it's trying to push the boundaries anyway. Maybe it's a late night slot, actually, think about it. But of course,
I do think there is a problem that the left wing of politics has infested entertainment, and I think that is a problem. Is that because, as you say, we're a divided country. We're kind of almost split down the middle on Brexit. So with a divided country like that, 50-50, the entertainment is almost exclusively left wing, and so. Like I think I said to you ages ago about American comedy entertainment is so dull now because it just consists of bad man, orange man is bad, hasn't he got funny hair, and that's it's just this kind of repetitive treadmill because it is solely and almost exclusively left wing, and that's a problem. I think that is a problem in the same way that our further educational establishment's been predominated by left wing political views. It's a problem because it doesn't, particularly modern left-wing, far left-wing views are fascist in their outlook and don't promote debate, or if there's a view that they don't agree with, they don't want to hear it. And I think we're heading down a really serious track for freedom of speech, and it's a worry.
Well, I agree. Certainly, culturally, it is to at the very least to the left of centre, the centre of gravity of comedy, which is why, although that's where I would lean, it is refreshing to find a Jeff Norcott every now and again. But I suppose you'd be wanting more Jeff Norcotts or. Not necessarily him.
I'm not saying I particularly want it. I mean, because all I tend to, it's like Radio 4 comedy. I haven't listened to Radio 4 comedy for a number of years because it is so infested with left wing ideology.
It's really true because you've slabbed some some comedy.
Yeah, but not for pleasure. I haven't listened to radio. Do you know what I mean?
Pleasure in working on this show.
I think the only thing that I've listened to is David Sedaris, which we listened to. We slabbed a couple of weeks ago. But other than that, I won't like the news quiz and things like. I can't bear it because it's just, until poor old Jeremy Hardy died. I mean, it was like a platform for his left-wing rants, and you just think, I wouldn't, if it was funny, it'd be okay, but it wasn't even funny anymore. It was just, it was like a belonging kind of club. But yeah, I don't know. So I'm not saying I want to see more comedy that isn't left-wing or is more right-wing. I'm not sure what right-wing comedy is, but I don't know. I just kind of avoid the amount that we have. So it kind of defeats itself in the end. People just turn off, and because I think people who are not that way inclined on a left leaning don't generally go around telling people they've got to have their view, whereas left wing people who are far left leaning tend to. Do you know what I mean? The expectation is they want people to have the same view as them, but you don't. Which is why they always go out on a march, and right wing people don't. And that's why it gets distorted. Yeah.
Okay, some right-wing people go out on a march.
Well, very right-wing people do, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
But that's...
The rest of you just got your feet up in front of the telly, which is probably, to be honest...
Yeah, I'm watching
the best thing.
Anyway. But yeah. So I felt sorry for her, I've got to be honest with you, because I kind of think, she was just trying to make a gag. And... I mean, I've interviewed Jo Brand, and I went into the interview not really thinking I was going to enjoy it, and I thought she was a thoroughly charming and entertaining woman.
Yes,
that was some time ago.
I've met her briefly. She's very warm-hearted and very personable.
My feeling. And the sad thing is, it doesn't take long before it starts getting personal and about the way she looks and the size of her and all that. And you think, how is this any better now? Where have we got? You know what I mean? I don't know. But no, it's an interesting thing for comedy, and I think comedy's going to have to address it in the future. But whether you can do that when, as I say, it's predominantly infested with left-wing ideology, I'm not sure. Not sure that you can. It's quite interesting.
Very loaded term, infested. But we'll move on. All I would say is generally, I mean, to summarise, anything cultural, and comedy is a part of culture, of course, anything that's not getting new blood in stagnates in time anyway, doesn't it? So it can't be healthy for anything. Same with, if everyone's trying to paint people with guitars and do a Poundland version of Picasso with Cubism, not another ruddy guitar. You get fed up after a while, don't you?
But they don't seem to. That's the problem. Is that the people who commission and the people who, because they have the same ideology, and this is why I use the term infestation, because it is an infestation, in the same way that it is in our higher education establishments, because the people who are making the decisions have that ideology as well. They don't think that it's something that they tire of and don't seem to tire of. It's only audiences who go, "Oh Christ, not this again." And doesn't seem to make a difference a lot of the time, but I don't know. Anyway, shall we get on with the cast of the pod?
Sorry, that was the sound of me looking out the window and thinking, which is great on an audio podcast.
The week I've had, by the way, with my choice, for people who've not listened before, we choose alternately. So I chose this week's offering, and at the end of this podcast, Adrian will choose next week. Well, I chose it, and I almost immediately, almost as soon as we stopped record, I was like. And when I found out it was 50 minutes long, I was like, I've been shaking like a leaf.
You were very apologetic in an email to me.
Or as somebody once said on Harry Hill's TV burp, I was shaking like a leaflet, which I thought was quite good.
That's a small leaf.
And I chose a thing which I'd only seen trails of. It's always a bad thing to choose things you've only seen trails of, isn't it? I chose a thing called Good Omens. And the reason I was particularly drawn to it was because of the two leading actors in the thing, as you've already mentioned. David Tennant. I was going to say Neil Tennant, then that's the Pet Shop Boys, isn't it?
It's getting worse.
David Tennant and Mr. Sheen and Michael Sheen, who are both fab in their own right, aren't they? But together, I thought, this is going to be awesome. And but then, as I say, found out it was 50 minutes. I mean, essentially, it's a very simple plot. in as much as, although it has inherent complexities, in as much as they are two angels, a good angel and a bad angel, or a demon and an angel, whichever way you want to look at it. David Tennant is the demon and Michael Sheen is the angel. And they kind of get together because they get a sniff that the end of the world is coming, and they're not really keen on the end of the world because they're living on the world and they quite like where they live in, and they don't want to go back to their respective overworlds and underworlds, do they? Really, is the basic premise of it. But we've got 3 clips to play of the show just to give you a bit of a flavour. Should we do our first one now?
Yeah.
Because I've chosen something right from the top. The whole thing, which we'll talk about in a little while if you like, but the whole thing is narrated as we go through to tell the story. And the first thing that we hear as the programme starts is the narrator, and she's telling us basically, in the biblical terms, as it were, how the world started.
Current theories on the creation of the universe state that if it were created at all and didn't just start, as it were, unofficially, it came into being about 14 billion years ago. The Earth is generally supposed to be about 4.5 billion years old. These dates are incorrect. Some medieval scholars put the date of the creation at 3760 BC. Others put creation as far back as 5508 BC. Also incorrect. Archbishop James Ussher claimed that the heaven and the earth were created on Sunday the 21st of October, 4004 BC at 9 a.m. This too was incorrect, by almost a quarter of an hour. It was created at 9:13 in the morning, which was correct. The whole business with the fossilized dinosaur skeletons was a joke the paleontologists haven't seen yet. This proves 2 things. Firstly, that God does not play dice with the universe. I play an ineffable game of my own devising. For everyone else, it's like playing poker in a pitch-dark room for infinite stakes with a dealer who won't tell you the rules and who smiles all the time.
Oh, dear.
Do you want my headline? Oh, yes. Wasn't there a clue in the fact? Because we're hooked up in real time, listening to the audio in real time. But you could also have heard me laughing if I had been laughing. So you'll have heard me not laughing. Oh, dear. Do you want my headline? My summary?
I don't think I do. I think, should we just end it here and say next week on the podcast?
And you've taken up 100 minutes of my life. The headline is 2 words, bad omen. Sorry.
Oh, man.
But I will endeavour to see the good in it, as I do try to see in you as well.
I don't know whether it's going to be easier to see the good in me or the good in it this week. I don't know. I really
both.
don't.
Both.
Do you know what it, when it kicked off and when I heard that, because that's God, isn't it? I just picked that up this time after the 3rd time of listening. But the narrator is God, isn't it?
Well, I think so. It's Francis, someone, isn't it? I saw him on the credits. Yes, it has to be,
because she said I play a game of ineffable poker or something or whatever. But when I first heard that, I thought Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Are you a fan of that?
Well, I was at the time. I haven't seen it for years, and so I did think of that as a template for this show. And then I was thinking, well, this is a Terry Pratchett creation ultimately.
Yeah.
How far back does that go? Which would have been first, Hitchhikers or Discworld and all of that? Because that went on for years and years, didn't it? It was Pratchett's life work, virtually, wasn't it?
Isn't this something that something of Agnes Nutter? Is the original work, I think.
You've lost me there.
Because the nice and accurate prophecies of Agnes Nutter.
Oh right. What are you saying? That's his Pratchett's earliest work.
Well, I don't know if that's the book within the book, or if that's what the title of the work is that became Good Omens.
Right.
But either, are you a fan of Pratchett then, or not? Are you?
No. Well, I mean, I've never felt the need. I've been put off by. I think it's there is a truth in what you've said previously about me and fantasy. There is clearly a problem there. I was put off by the artwork of Terry Pratchett's things and the name Discworld. Just nothing. It didn't sound like it was remotely inviting, given my personal taste.
Right.
Pratchett has his fans. Clearly, sadly, he's no longer with us, but I mean, massively successful and a very loyal following over many years. So what do I know before I get lynched?
Is it a fantasy thing that you ever? Because was it the end of last week we were talking about your mental block,
my problems
with anything that isn't rooted in reality, and I said, right, okay, this will test you to the limit. And lo and behold,
actually that was your conclusion that it was my mental block. But the more I think about it, I thought, okay, let's sit down and think of a fantasy that I have actually enjoyed. And I had to go back to primary school to where we were treated in the fourth form, so I'd have been 10, back in the Dark Ages, and we were treated to The Hobbit, read by our teacher.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed that.
I thought you were going to go, and it was bloody awful.
It was awful then, it's awful now.
Yeah.
No, I loved it, but I was thinking, oh, right, must seek out some more Tolkien when I went to big school.
Yeah.
And I even bought, I think it was one of those, in those days you had book clubs, remember those? Where you had to have a certain minimum number of books, or you got strung up and put away for years. No, my poor father probably had to shut out for that then 1 month. And I don't think I could have got past the opening pages, the maps. I don't think I read anything.
You see, we had a different, because I went to quite a poor comprehensive school. Our book club was, we used to get a book and then just club it.
They club you with it.
And then that was book club. And
it wasn't that bad.
Then,
you did reading. That's a posh school from where I come from.
Then film club, we get a VHS cassette, and then we just club it.
Well, it reminds me of the joke about Culture Club, but you can see where it's going. If this is culture, give me a club. Thank you for that, Gary.
Oh man, I feel really bad. 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Watched
On
it
top
twice.
of the, I know that's 100 minutes. I won't live again.
Oh, you could have had a really good game of squash, couldn't you, in that period of time, or something?
If I only played it, yes.
Anything.
I could have squashed you.
Nothing redeeming. I mean, I thought the chemistry between. I mean, it almost feels like pointless me talking about it now, but I thought the chemistry between Tennant and Sheen was. I mean, it was beautifully cast, and even the supporting actors as well. I thought there was none of that redeemed it for it. I mean, the script was great. Didn't you like any of it?
No, I wouldn't say that. No, high production values. Be the first to say, look, I can't hold a candle to David Tennant and Michael Sheen, both great actors. I'm not sure that I saw a brilliant chemistry between them. Did you say chemistry? Was that the word you used?
Yeah, between the two of them, I thought. Yeah, I thought the scenes together they had were...
Obviously Yeah, I suppose so. It's one of those things. I've used the phrase, apologies, but it's the same genre I've used this phrase of before, which is it's less than the sum of its parts. But I mean, absolutely brilliant, faultless production values, big name actors, even as you were saying, the smaller name ones, perfectly strong performances. It just doesn't add up for me. Just nothing to make me want to see episode 2. There's nothing that nothing made me want to see scene 2, but I had to.
Not even that. You see, because I was like watching it between my fingers almost, like kind of afraid to come out, and I thought, I don't know if this is going to be any good. And it flew for me. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was well paced. I thought the story was nice and twisty, if you know what I mean. But I mean, they didn't need to put the twist in that they put in. Because it's quite a strong story and it's quite a strong narrative anyway. But I just kind of thought, like every face that I recognised that popped up, I thought, oh, great, they're in it as well. And it flew for me. I thought the music was fabulous in it. I mean, it was
I think it was David Arnold, wasn't it? Yeah, no, the music was very good.
But I mean, from a bloke who's actually wrote some of the music for SpongeBob SquarePants, you kind of you're onto a winner, don't you? Really?
Did he write that?
Yeah, four episodes apparently.
I didn't see the small print. There were so many names whizzing past, and I'd already donated 100 minutes to the cause, so I wasn't going to. Freeze frame everyone. But was it actually Brian May playing guitar in the incidental music, the theme music? Rather?
It did say thanks to Queen at the end, didn't it? So I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not really quite sure whether it was. I mean, it was very cinematic, wasn't it? The score.
Yes. And yeah, the whole feel of it was, come back to the production values, and it was ambitious in that sense.
Yeah, and see, I kind of thought when I saw the trailers, I thought, oh, it's going to be a big glossy American thing, and I'm not. When I looked at the cast, I think it was probably a 80-20 split, was it? British American.
Yeah, I didn't think the American contingent were necessarily even that large, but certainly it wasn't a large part of it. So it didn't feel like we're desperately trying to court the transatlantic audience.
No, and the Americans they did put in, like Nick Offerman, who was an ambassador or something. I think you only saw him in this episode on like a Skype connection sort of thing. He's again, fabulous comedy actor and good comedy heritage in the United States. So they're kind of not, like you say, they're not. John Hamm is another one they got in. Didn't know the American. He was the Archangel Gabriel. And you kind of think they're not like you say. You didn't get the impression they were shoehorning them in, did you? Oh, we've got to have an American in now. I don't know,
no,
but
no.
Should we have another listen to another clip? I got another.
Yeah.
Because I know you love it.
Can't wait.
This essentially, I mean, I mentioned that. There's two main characters, a demon and an angel, and David Tennant plays the demon. What I liked about this scene, the reason I chose it, was I thought this idea that all the demons, because they're demons, are all slagging each other off, and they don't really like each other. They don't trust each other because I think, as they said, somebody said in one of the scenes somewhere, they said, it wouldn't be much of a demon if I went around trusting people, which was quite nice. But we're setting the scene about what's about to happen, and Crowley, who is David Tennant's character, meets up with a couple of fellow demons, and as they do, they get very competitive and they start to compare notes.
All hail Satan. All hail Satan.
Hi guys. Yeah, sorry I'm late, but you know how it is on the A40 at Denham. I tried to cut up towards Chorley.
Now that we are all here, let us recount the deeds of the day.
Of course. Deeds? Yeah.
I've tempted a priest. As he walked down the street, he saw all the pretty girls in the sun. I put doubt into his mind. He would have been a saint. Now within a decade, we shall have him.
Nice one.
I have corrupted a politician. Let him think that a tiny bribe wouldn't hurt. Within a year, we shall have him.
Right, you're like this. I brought down every London area mobile phone network tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't easy.
What exactly has that done to secure souls for our master?
Oh, come on, think about it. 15 million pissed off people to take it out on each other.
It's not exactly craftsmanship.
Well, head office don't seem to mind. They love me down there. Guys, times are changing.
Well, now we know who to blame next time our mobile phone signal disappears.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, Tennant is perfectly matched for the part and vice versa. He does do eccentric extremely well.
Yeah.
First time I ever saw him was on an ITV drama, and I don't know that I've ever seen him, and that was an eccentric role, and he stood out, you couldn't ignore him. And I don't think I've ever seen him in a role where he wasn't given plenty of license to be a little bit nuts, if we're honest.
He does evil well as well, doesn't he? Don't you think he does?
Oh yeah. No, I've got a lot of time for him. Just I think it's the premise of the show. It didn't really work for me, but yeah, and of course we're an audio podcast, so you're only hearing the actors there. But I mean, he had a fantastic rock and roll swagger, didn't he? And the shades and everything. And he set himself up in a way.
He wears shades, doesn't he? Because he's got these glorious contact lenses in that make his eyes look like snake eyes. And yeah, so you there's a lot of visuals going on, isn't there, in the whole thing? It's like some of the scenes they're there. I love there was a scene at the start where they were out on the wall of the Garden of Eden, and it started to rain as the camera pulled out, and they stood side by side, David Tennant and Michael Sheen, and they both got wings. And because it started to rain, Michael Sheen, did you see, he put his wing over the top of David Tennant to keep him dry?
Oh. No, I missed that.
And I just thought it was just really clever things like that because he just couldn't. He's an angel, and he just couldn't be nasty.
Nice.
Yeah, he just couldn't. He couldn't do anything other than, you know, no matter how evil the demon was, he'd still be nice, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there was, to me, it was just filled of lovely both visuals and written cues as well that kind of made you think, oh, it's just, you know, it's awesome. I mean, the fact that he's called Crowley. I'm presuming it's after Aleister Crowley, is it? I'm the Satanist, is it? I'm guessing. I
thought it was Gary Crowley, the DJ.
The DJ
of alternative music.
who's a demon on the decks.
I didn't know Aleister Crowley. Should I know him? Was he in the news for being a Satanist? Or?
Well, he was a bit before our time, but yeah, he was. He was quite famous at the time.
Right.
He was into satanic stuff and all that kind of thing. He was a big. He was what my dad would say. He's big down the Satan side, you know.
Right.
But I don't know why my dad said that because he's from Wales. But you know, it's
very strange.
It's weird.
He's Jewish.
Yeah.
But
Jaime Jones.
I was going to say, can I make a general point about the narrator? Because I confess, some of my writings have included a narrator, and I too have been critiqued for including a narrator because the feeling is, you know, it's the classic thing: show don't tell in drama, which includes comedy drama, which is the genre we're in, and certainly the purists think having a narrator is a bit of a cheat because it's like turning over 2 pages at the same time, doing it at once, and I couldn't be bothered to write that scene or let the story emerge through the events and so on. So I put in a great big chunk of back plot in a paragraph. There was a heck of a lot of that going on. Right from the word go. Obviously, the first clip we heard was the narrator. That obviously didn't bother you one iota.
No, well, because the narrator was God. Was you know, it was the voice of God.
Don't let her off the hook.
And well, but I'm just saying that so in terms of plot, you know, God is quite a key player in the whole thing, isn't she? Really?
Yeah, she's got some skin in the game, as they say.
There certainly has. But I'm sure that'll clear up with a
probably with a bit of moisturiser.
Be fine. But do you know, every time you mention being critiqued about your writings, I'm not sure if you were critiqued or just crucified. I don't.
Damned.
Every time.
What, you think I'm taking it out on everyone else?
I think every time you mention it, I think, God, they absolutely slaughtered it. I would never criticise somebody for using a narrator. I mean, one of the most successful touring stage productions, the Rocky Horror Show.
Yeah.
You know, it's talking of which, actually, was Nicholas Parsons, wasn't it, for a long time?
I thought you were going to say, talking of which, I'm wearing my prize garters tonight.
Who actually appears in this.
Yes, in audio,
in voice, yeah. But no, I to me it is, and I accept what you're saying, and it could be seen as being lazy, but I don't know. Isn't that art for art's sake? Then isn't it just, you know, if it works, and the audience like it, why is that bad?
Okay, I'll reinstate my narrator then. I've been badly critiqued.
I think you've been slaughtered, mate. I tell you, honestly, I do.
No, I don't want to sound chippy because the point is, it's fair game. I mean, people can critique this very podcast, can't they? And some of them do. Let's face it.
They can go and bog off, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, you're right. I mean, no, everyone's got an opinion, haven't they? I mean, I think the difference between some critiques and I think what we do, and I think what other people do, is that what I think we always try and be constructive about it. I don't think we're ever just, like, you know, destructive for the sake of it or to make a name for ourselves. And you know, we always give our reason. I always say, you know, everybody can't like everything, and that's just the way of the world. But I don't know. I just think if it works, is it a bad thing? But having said that, I do accept what you say, that it can be perceived as, oh yeah, I can't be bothered to write that scene. I'll just get the narrator to say it.
No, of course, there are narrators and narrators, and it can be very entertaining. I thought there was a contradiction. Sorry, I got nitpicky from the beginning, and as soon as I did that, I thought, can I try and row back? I must try and, it's like being on a jury. You've got to wipe your head of preconceptions, prejudice, prejudging. I confess I really struggled with it, but I did try to. But there's a line about, we heard it at the top, so I should have said this off the back of the first clip before we get on to our third and final one. God says, and it's nice to have a female God, being a lefty, I'm all for that, but that probably makes you angry. But
it depends whether it's gratuitous or not. I mean, if it do you know what I mean? It's like,
I'm only teasing.
No, because I think it's an interesting point, because I think they cast Adam and Eve at the start with both black actors.
Yeah.
And I thought, is that gratuitously provocative? Are they just trying to be provocative? In which case, it doesn't work for me. I don't rise to it. I don't bite there. And I just think, whatever. Or why wasn't one Chinese? Or do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I did kind of get the sense that it was a bit affected.
Right. Anyway, what I was going to say was about these different versions of when the world began. And then God says in the intro, this is paraphrasing, but essentially, when it actually happened was this at this time, and that was right. And you think, when you just told us that's when it happened, it didn't make sense. But hey, maybe that was ironic, or something went over my head or under my shoes. Anyway, should we get on to our Act 3, our final audio clip?
Yeah, let's put you out your misery.
No, it's not misery. I mean, I'm enjoying this, as Margaret Thatcher said when she was being skewered.
Yes. Although you said it like, I'm enjoying this through gritty speech. Either that or it's the local meeting of the Ventriloquist Society.
Got like a...
Yeah. The two of them, that's the I haven't mentioned Michael Sheen's character, Aziraphale.
Oh, because yes, I'd rather you pronounce it than me.
That's why I'd mentioned it. So Aziraphale is the angel, and Crowley is the demon, and the two of them decide to meet up in St James's Park, actually, or St James Park, I should say now, because we've decided we're pronouncing the whole of that apostrophe S thing differently from what I was taught as a child. But hey ho! So
no business there.
They decide to get together to discuss the end of the world, because obviously it has deep and complex repercussions for the both of them.
You're sure it was the Antichrist?
I should know. I delivered the baby. Oh, no, delivered, handed it over.
An American diplomat? Really? As if Armageddon were a cinematographic show you wish to sell in as many countries as possible.
The Earth and all the kingdoms thereof.
We will win, of course.
You really believe that?
Obviously. Heaven will, finally, triumph over hell. It's all going to be rather lovely.
Out of interest, how many first-class composers do your lot have in heaven? Because Mozart's one of ours.
Beethoven, Schubert, all of the Bachs.
They have already written their music.
And you'll never hear it again. No more Albert Hall, no more Glyndebourne, just celestial harmonies.
Well,
It's just the start of what you lose if you win. No more fascinating little restaurants where they know you. No gravlax and dill sauce. No more old bookshops.
Shame it ended there, because not that there was anything wrong with the dialogue, but I found myself counting the number of bells tolling. And I just wondered if there was a joke there, and it cut off at the 12th bell. And I wondered if there was going to be a Winston Smith 1984 Orwellian 13th chime. Anyway, clearly
you
I'm
really
not
were distracted, weren't you?
I know. It's a worry, isn't it? The dialogue was so gripping that I thought about the background noise. I will say, I mean, I have said at the beginning, Michael Sheen, David Tennant, fantastic actors. I did enjoy the way Michael Sheen, as the unpronounceable angel, played it as a neurotic. What you're not seeing, of course, you're not seeing anything, but you're hearing a degree of nervousness in the voice, but you're missing sort of the twitches that go with it in the eyes, and you could see it's hard work being perfect, I suppose, isn't it? As us humans can attest.
See, I thought it was full of cleverness in the writing. I mean, I like, the whole thrust of that scene there was that, life is all about balance. And that no more did the angel want to spend an eternity in heaven than the demon wanted to spend an eternity in hell, because for nothing else, it was all the same thing, the one thing. It was the monotony of it, whichever, whether you're in heaven or hell. And it just, those, to me, that was really clever, and you start to think about it, and you think, actually, yeah, you wouldn't want, it's about balance. That's why life is exciting, because it's about balance, isn't it? Don't you think? It's that.
But you're speaking as a human, and I don't know, I can pick holes in the plot, but of course you can do that with fantasy. They kind of wanted their cake and wanted to eat it as well, though. For instance, at one point, towards the end of the long 50 minutes, the David Tennant character is Gary Crowley is saying, I sense that there's a plot point which is a dog arriving. It's not much of a spoiler, and very good visual effect there with the dog's jaws, but he's miles and miles away. He just senses it, and he's sitting in a pub in, I think, the West End with Mr. Sheen and his polish, and he's not had any premonitions like that before. And you think, here's the thing: there's a fine podcast which I've mentioned before, which is a great compliment to this show, and let's face it, we don't have many compliments to this show. No, complementary to this show, because it's a kind of it's professional comedy writers, and they have a star guest, and they have their own version of the Slab, which will annoy them because they came first, but we hadn't heard of them. Anyway, so they do their equivalent. Slabbing of Airplane, the movie. I think it's Charlie Brooker. I could be wrong. But what they said at one point, and this is where you can tell they're really good writers. They wrote, or they were a pair of the writers, amongst others, on Peep Show, which I'm always saying, that's a mark of quality in my world. And they talk about an airplane. Eight. This is an arbitrary number, but 8 things are fixed and believable, and then so they can monkey around with the 9th. And here I feel there's too much monkeying everywhere. So, but that, I suppose that's fantasy. Perhaps that's why I don't like it. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, you've said this before with fantasy plots, is that you're saying, he could smell it. Actually, he could smell the dog had arrived, because he said he made some reference to smelling it or whatever. But
right.
You're right. He had this extraordinary sense, and you kind of think, you said, but he hadn't mentioned it before. Well. That's life's like that, isn't it? You wouldn't, you could see 2 people sitting in the pub, and it's only when they brought a cup of coffee over that one goes in and goes, "Oh, that's hot," and you think, "Well, I didn't know they could feel hot. Why didn't he write it in earlier?" And you think, well, you can't write everything in, and there are some things that it's better if you just go, "Oh, okay, so that's something."
And I would have enjoyed it more, if I could suspend disbelief. I mean, it's a bit ironic because I want to critique it by saying it all felt too technical, but actually people will listen to me and say, well, hang on, loosen up, man. You're being too technical in your appraisal of it.
I do get the impression that you kind of, and we're critiquing the show, not you. But
well, I don't know.
But that being said, let's still carry on for this time.
Fair game.
I do think that as soon as you realise that it isn't based in any reality, I can imagine you sit there with your arms folded. Sissy and Ada, Les Dawson and Roy Barraclough. I can imagine
pushing
you
up my
itching your bosom up and thinking.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's another thing. I didn't know he could sense dogs from a distance.
Go on, entertain me. I do think there is an element to that. But
it's a fair cop. What can I say? Which
saddens me, because I must admit, I love this. I really loved it. I didn't think I would, and I am absolutely gagging for episode 2 now. I'm going to go and binge on it, I think. But I loved it, and I thought it was just great. There was just lots of little bits. The visuals, as you say, were fantastic. There's one scene where they both go to their respective head offices and they go to a flight of escalators.
Yeah, I did enjoy that.
And of course, Michael Sheen goes up the escalator and David Tennant disappears down into the ground.
Yes, but you still see him carry on in a sort of reflection in the floor.
Yeah,
going underground.
So clever, isn't it? The way
it
was done. And lovely little lines like I said, the angel just couldn't be nasty. He was saying about him being a demon. He said, "You're a demon." They're going into a pub, and he said, "You're a demon." He said, "Get behind me, you foul fiend." And then just smiles at him and goes, "After you." It was just lovely stuff.
That was having fun with the whole concept.
Yeah. And some great supporting actors and actresses as well. I thought there was some wonderful stuff in there. I surprised myself actually, and I forgot your phobia of fantasy, and I thought you might. I thought you might like it, but
it's not a phobia.
I think you're fantasy phobic. I think
Phantophobia.
I think I did a boo-boo. Anyway, go on. So give us your final critique and your scores, Gloria.
Yes. Now, of course, I haven't prepped this. If it was on production values, it would be a very generous score. It would have to be up in the 4, circa 4. But because this is about, it's kind of how does it reach me, personal enjoyment thereof or lack of.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll just keep you in suspense for one moment longer on the numbers. But by the by, it got 8.4 out of 10 on the Internet Movie Database.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah. So you might be closer to that, but it's when we tot up our scores out of 5. Mine might just bring it down a bit. I'm not doing it to be nasty. But I was going to say, contrast with something we slabbed only the other week, which was Back to Life, with the marvellous Daisy Haggard. I said then about how it let the pictures do the talking. 2 fabulous female writers, of whom Daisy was one, Laura Soul on the other. And this was just too wordy for me, just cramming in literally from the word go.
Yeah, I concede that. You did have to pay attention, didn't you? I mean, it was one of those where you kind of, and at times might have even had to wound it back to go, what did he say then? Can I just mention Back to Life, by the way? I've managed to grab episode 2 of that.
Only 2? I saw all 6, which for me it's not binge viewing in one session, but I did it in 1 week, which is unheard of. As you know.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
You're only up to 2. I could be superior then.
It was only just because of pressure of babysitting and various other things, nappy changing being chief amongst them.
Yes.
But I've only seen 2, but I love it every time I watch an episode. I think even more highly of it. So thoroughly recommend that one. We gave it an 8.5, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago? So
yes, well deserved.
Go on then, give it a number, baby.
I'm afraid it's going to be. See, you might think of it as a middling score, but for me, it's a kind of fail, which is 2.5.
Okay.
But it would be lower if it weren't for all these wonderful sort of redeeming features that didn't quite redeem it enough. But as I've said, the acting, the special effects, visual effects, so on, music, etc. So lots of things that helped it along.
I'll give it a 4. And probably the same reasons for you why it didn't get a 4.5 or a 5. Things like it was kind of complex and wordy at times, but thoroughly enjoyable. And I will be watching the rest of it. There's no question about it. I was really pleasantly surprised by the whole thing. But I'll give it a 4. So 6.5 out of 10. For Good Omens. If you want to catch up with it, make your own mind up, then I'll put a link in our description as to where you can find it. But I think the BBC are going to be running it as well on free to air if you wanted to catch it.
Yes. Sorry, we should say for legal reasons, you reminded me. BBC Studios is but one partner alongside the Blank Corporation. Is that a side swipe at the British Broadcasting Corporation? I don't know. And Narrativia, or Narrative, must be something to do with narration, obviously, or telling stories. Have you heard of them before? That company?
No. But don't forget. A lot of the times, these production companies are set up specifically, and I think it's for tax reasons and to contain tax and revenue within one vehicle. They set up companies just to make programs.
Yes, but you'd think they'd make our lives easy by calling it, I don't know, the Good Omens Corporation or something.
Yeah, it would be easy, wouldn't it, really? Yeah.
But the big banner it comes under, because it's the last credits, I'm assuming, given their might, they're the overarching one, which is Amazon Studios, which we're going to see much more of, I'm sure, in the future.
Yeah, it's an Amazon Prime original production, isn't it? So you can get it on there as well. But more power to their elbow, I say. Because it's great to see other production houses flourishing, and lots more work for the actors as well. Anyway, It is that time for you to whip it out.
Hey, matron. Well, I made an allusion to this just the other week without putting the name to it. This is when I chose Benny Hill. The other thing I nearly went for is the one I'm going to set for next week's homework, which intrigues me, if for nothing else, its title and a deliberate error in the title. A deliberate error in a plural in the title. Can you get what I'm talking about? Because I know you know it, and it's got one of your mates in it.
No.
One of your Matthew mates.
What am I? What? Oh, Matthew Bainton, is it?
Yes. You could get it right, or you could get it. It's the wrong
the wrong
yeah,
Mans.
You were nearly there. You'd have got there eventually.
The wrong Mans. Yeah.
With James Corden staring at me as I look at the picture accompanying it as well.
Do you know,
as,
I got a really strange relationship with James Corden. I can't bear him. I was going to say as an individual, but I can't bear him. I was going to say
you've not met the guy. We should make it clear it's not personal.
I can't bear him as a host.
But you like him as an actor?
I love him as an actor. But I can't bear to watch I think he's so fawning and insincere when he's a host. I just think his thing in America is just goddamn awful. But I just love him as an actor. It's really weird, and I kind of think, James Corden. Oh, what's he doing? What is it? Is he? And he hosts the Golden Globes, and he's kissing bums, and oh man, he's just
right.
But I suppose that's what pays the mortgage, isn't it? Really, that's why he's there and I'm here.
Well, he's paying. I was going to say playing a role, but he's paying a role as well. It's an interesting one. We could let's argue about it next week. Perhaps. Okay. I think this show is almost as long as the show we've slabbed, which is unusual for it to be less long than the show we've been slabbing,
or shorter, as we call it on planet Earth.
Yeah, sorry. See, I was in fantasy land where we like it, you will. See, the language is slightly different.
Less long it is.
Wrong words. You get mans is the plural of men. No, man. Oh, stop it. Anyway, now you'll love this. It's on your favourite BBC iPlayer, and as we speak, it's available for 11 months.
Oh, wow.
Which is annoying if you're listening to this show a year from now, but pretty good news otherwise. So certainly if you're in the UK.
Okay. All right. So, Wrong Mans. Yeah, we look forward to that one.
I didn't say,
what episode and what?
Yeah, series 1, episode 1, for purely selfish grounds that, it's around for 11 months, so I haven't got to pick the last one that went out. And B, I've never seen any of them, so to help me, because it doesn't take much to confuse me. I should say I'm doing it for my loving audience.
I'm really confused. I don't know what the hell you're on about, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's fantasy. It's messed with my head.
Yeah. And on that bombshell, sorry, I've been watching a lot of old Top Gear reruns recently. That's it. We've run out of time. It's the end of another Comedy Slab podcast. Hope you've enjoyed our musings on the new Netflix comedy. This is Netflix, isn't it? Yeah, Netflix comedy Good Omens. And if you get the chance to have a look at it, let us know what you think. If you see us on YouTube, particularly, I know you can leave comments there as well. And you can also do it on Facebook and on Twitter. If you want to catch up with the show, there's loads of places you can do it. You can catch up with, as I say, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. I think it's still called that this week, but stand by for a name change next week. and all the usual podcast carriers and aggregators and whatever you call them. We are there or thereabouts. We're also on social media, aren't we, sweetie?
We are, darling. Guess what? At Comedy Slab on Twitter and the Facebook page, likewise. And I hope you will like it because that's wise. It's at Comedy Slab. You've got to have a system, as Harry Hill says.
Yeah. And so until next time, thank you for your company. In the meantime, I am going away to try and figure out the two of us, who is the angel and who is the demon.
And you floored me because I was trying to think desperately at the last minute, trying to think of a gag about Damian Green being evil. But since he's a politician and he's been up to naughty things, allegedly, well, let's park it there for legal reasons.
I think we both know which one the demon is, don't you?